Have you ever felt like you needed someone else's approval before stepping into your full potential? Like you're quietly waiting in the background of your own life, hoping someone, anyone, will finally notice you, finally tell you that you're enough, finally give you permission to be what you already know. Deep down, you could become. You get an idea that sparks something powerful inside you, but before you move, you pause and overthink it. You ask yourself, will they think this is too much, too bold, too ambitious? That hesitation creeps in like a shadow, dimming the light that was just beginning to glow. You feel that inner fire that wants to rise, that urge to speak, to build, to move. But then you shrink back, haunted by the thought, what if I'm not qualified yet? What if I fail? What if I'm judged for even trying? And then even worse, you picture a bold version of your life, a fearless, unapologetic, purpose-driven version. But just as quickly you retreat from that image, you tone it down. You dress it in quiet colors. You hide it beneath modesty and self-doubt. Not because it isn't real, but because you're scared of what others might think if you dare to show it. Why do we do this? Why do we hand over the keys to our destiny and wait outside the door hoping someone will let us in? Why do we live like greatness is a reward we have to be chosen for, rather than a reality we get to choose for ourselves? There are so many people walking through this life half alive, not because they lack potential, but because they've been conditioned to wait. Wait for someone to tell them they're ready. Wait for the perfect timing. Wait for a label, a title, a certificate, a validation stamp that says now you can begin. But what if all of that is a lie? What if the only thing you've ever needed wasn't approval, wasn't permission, wasn't applause, just a decision to start, a decision to rise, a decision to stop waiting and start owning the life you were born to live. Ask yourself, what have you kept inside because you feared rejection more than you desired growth? What dream have you buried so deep that you've started to forget it was yours to begin with? Who are you still seeking validation from, and why do they hold that much influence over your life's direction? This isn't about arrogance. It's not about proving anything to anyone. It's not about ego or being loud. It's about ownership. It's about knowing that you don't need to be chosen because you've already been created with the capacity to choose. It's about no longer asking the world, am I allowed to be great? And finally answering yourself, I always was. The moment you stop asking for permission is the moment everything begins to change. Your energy becomes different. Your presence becomes undeniable. Your decisions begin to reflect a version of you that no longer needs external approval to move forward. You stop waiting, and you start becoming. Not because you think you're better than anyone, but because you finally realize you were never less. So, let's talk about why you must stop seeking permission to rise, why your greatness doesn't need to be approved, and how to finally live like the powerful version of you that's been waiting to come alive. Number 1, permission is a cage you don't realize you're in. Most people have no idea they're walking through life inside a cage with the door wide open, waiting for someone else to say, you're allowed to fly. And the most dangerous part is it doesn't even look like a cage at first. It feels like being polite, like being careful, like being considerate. But underneath it all, it's hesitation. It's second-guessing. It's editing yourself based on who's watching. You get an idea that excites you. But before you take one step forward, you start wondering how it'll be received. You think about the people in your life and whether they'll understand your direction even if they've never walked it themselves. You imagine a new version of yourself, bolder, more alive, but then you tone it down just enough so you don't disturb the atmosphere around you. Ask yourself, am I choosing my path based on what feels authentic or what feels acceptable? Am I waiting for a sign, a nod, a thumbs up from someone before I act on what I know in my gut is right for me? The longer you wait for approval, the more your potential slips away unnoticed. No one can give you permission to rise because greatness was never something meant to be handed to you. It was built into you, waiting to be activated. You weren't made to tiptoe around other people's comfort zones. You were made to break free from your own limitations and lead with purpose. Number 2, playing small doesn't serve anyone. We're taught to believe that shrinking is noble, that being invisible is a virtue, and that being too loud, too ambitious, or too visible somehow makes you arrogant. But that belief is a quiet lie dressed up as modesty. Playing small doesn't make you humble, it makes you invisible. And while you think you're protecting others from your power, you're actually withholding the light that could have illuminated someone else's path every time you downplay your ideas, your voice, your talents. You're not keeping the peace. You're keeping the world from the impact only you can make. Ask yourself, what would happen if I stopped hiding? If I stopped minimizing, if I showed up fully, not to impress, but to express? What would happen if I lived my truth loudly with energy and conviction? This isn't about spotlight. It's about alignment. It's about matching your actions with your highest vision. And when you do that, you don't just rise alone. You invite others to do the same. Because your courage becomes the permission they didn't know they needed. The real power of showing up as your full self isn't just in what it does for you. It's in what it activates in everyone around you. Number 3, nobody's coming to crown you. If you're waiting for someone to recognize your potential before you start living it, you'll wait forever. No one is coming to tap you on the shoulder and say, now you're allowed to be great. There's no magical moment where the world suddenly decides you're worthy. You don't need a degree to be valuable. That piece of paper might open doors, but it doesn't define the fire in your soul. You don't need a title to lead. Leadership is not a rank. It's the willingness to go first, to carry the weight, to show up when no one else will. You don't need applause to be effective. If you're waiting for the crowd to cheer before you move, you'll stay stuck forever. The people who change the world don't wait for standing ovations. They act because they know they were born with something to give. So ask yourself honestly, have I been waiting for external proof to believe in myself? Have I been standing in the shadows of my own life, waiting for someone else to shine a light? What would happen if you stopped waiting? What would your life look like if you acted like you already had everything you need? Because the truth is, you do. You have breath. You have ability. You have choice. The world isn't ignoring you. It's simply waiting for you to stop hiding. Most people are too busy dealing with their own insecurities to validate yours. And even if they did, that validation would never be enough. Because what you're really searching for is internal permission. You want to feel worthy. You want to feel like you matter. But that feeling doesn't come from others. It comes from you. So stop waiting for permission slips from the world. Write your own. Sign it in your own name. Step up even if you're scared. Show up even if no one's clapping. Claim your space like it was made for you, because it was. Number 4, fear of judgment is the real barrier. Let's be honest. What keeps most people small isn't a lack of talent. It's not about intelligence. It's not about not having enough time or money. It's fear. Raw, unspoken fear. Fear of being misunderstood. Fear of being judged. Fear of stepping out into the light only to be pulled down by the opinions of others. And deeper still, fear of outgrowing the people you've known your whole life. Because growth creates tension. When you rise, you change. And not everyone around you will know how to handle that. But here's the truth that will set you free. You don't need to be liked by everyone. You only need to be respected by one person: yourself. You have to be able to look in the mirror and say, "I showed up for me today." Because popularity fades. Applause dies down. But self-respect echoes through every choice you make. If you're constantly shrinking yourself to make others comfortable, you're sacrificing your authenticity at the altar of approval. That's not love. That's fear in disguise. Now ask yourself, am I really living the life I want, or the life that's easiest for others to accept? Have I created a version of myself that's so watered down, so careful, that I've forgotten who I truly am? And here's the more powerful question. What am I losing by keeping everyone else comfortable? How many dreams have I put on pause to avoid being too much, too different, too bold? Greatness always challenges comfort. It makes people uncomfortable, not because it's wrong, but because it reminds them of their own unrealized potential. Let them be uncomfortable. That's not your burden to carry. Your job isn't to make yourself smaller to fit into places you've outgrown. Your job is not to be acceptable. Your job is to be authentic, fully, unapologetically. And when you do, the right people will find you. Not because you conformed, but because you finally stood in your truth. Number 5, acting boldly builds momentum. The moment you stop asking for permission and start moving in alignment with who you really are, something powerful begins to happen. The fear doesn't vanish, but your power begins to rise above it. You realize that confidence isn't the absence of fear, it's your decision to move through fear anyway. You take a risk, and suddenly you see that you didn't need the approval you thought you did. You make a decision, and you start to feel that inner strength swell. You speak your truth, and your voice gets clearer, firmer, more grounded. Each bold action becomes a stepping stone. You're building momentum with every move. One step becomes two steps become a rhythm. And before you know it, you're not hesitating anymore. You're moving. Ask yourself, what bold action have I been postponing because I didn't feel ready? What idea have I been sitting on, waiting for perfect conditions? What would change if I stopped trying to be prepared and just started being real? Because boldness isn't a talent. It's not reserved for the naturally charismatic or the ultra-confident. It's a muscle. It grows with use. And the more you use it, the more natural it becomes. Eventually, that hesitation starts to shrink. The doubt starts to lose its grip. And suddenly you find yourself not asking anymore, not wondering anymore. You're becoming. You're evolving. You're stepping into the version of yourself that always existed, but now has the courage to rise. You don't become confident by thinking about it. You become confident by choosing action over anxiety. Every bold decision sends a message to your mind. I trust myself. I've got this. And over time, your actions shape your identity. You stop being someone who's trying to be bold, and you become someone who is. Number 6, greatness isn't a label, it's a lifestyle. You weren't born to be average. You weren't meant to coast through life, checking boxes, hoping to avoid failure. You're not here to just get by. You're here to break through, You're here to wake up every day with a sense of fire in your chest. You're here to rise up after every fall and keep moving forward because there's something greater inside you. But that journey doesn't start with achievement. It starts with identity. It starts when you stop seeing greatness as something out there and start seeing it as something within. Greatness isn't a label handed out by the world. It's not given to you by followers, titles, or trophies. It's a lifestyle, a daily choice, a decision to live with excellence, with purpose, with integrity, even when no one's watching. No one can hand it to you. No one can install it in you. It's something you claim by how you show up each day. It's how you carry yourself. It's how you respond to setbacks. It's how you rise when life knocks you flat. So the real question is, what identity have you been afraid to fully embody? What part of you have you been keeping in the shadows because it might be too intense, too driven, too different? And who do you become when you stop holding back? When you stop asking if it's okay to shine? When you live like you already are who you're becoming? Everything starts to shift. You no longer live based on your current circumstances. You live from your highest vision. Your habits change because now they're driven by purpose. Your energy sharpens because now it's fueled by clarity. Your life begins to mirror your mindset, and your world begins to reflect your internal evolution. That's when the waiting ends. That's when you stop hoping for greatness and start living it. Not someday. Not when you feel ready, but now. Because greatness isn't something you wait for. It's something you choose. So, stop waiting. Stop hesitating. Stop asking the world to validate something you already know deep down. You were built for more. Ask yourself, what version of me have I been too afraid to reveal? What could happen if I stopped apologizing for being powerful? What's one decision I can make today that reflects the greatness I've been sitting on? This is your reminder. You don't need permission to rise. You don't need approval to evolve. And you don't need validation to become powerful. You just need to decide. Take care of your family, your loved ones, and the people around you. Because when you rise, you show them what's possible too. You give others silent permission to believe, to hope, to act. That's the impact of someone who chooses to live fully. Drop a comment below. What part of your life are you done asking permission for? What chapter are you ready to write without waiting for applause? Stay strong. Stay focused. Stay tall. And as always, like, share, and subscribe to Mind Aura.